All right, we are back with week two of The Artist's Way, and it's all about recovering a sense of identity. And in week two, Julia Cameron talks about moving more towards a self defined you. And first, she talks about going sane, and that going sane can feel like going crazy in the beginning because, of course, you are changing your habits, you are maybe changing your beliefs, and it feels very different to your current functioning or your previous functioning methods. And some of the things that she talks about in this book and that she asks you to, explore are, very counter to what you think it should be like to be an artist. So, yes, it can feel like you're going crazy, and it might feel also like that to other people, but you are actually going sane. And I love that. And it's a very good reminder that, yeah, might feel a bit weird in the in between period. And I think we are in an in between period now, and that will continue for more weeks. And it's just, stick with it and trust it, basically. And then she talks about, things that can sabotage you. So, a recovering artist, like, and she compares it to maybe a recovering alcoholic who must avoid taking, the first sip. A recovering artist must avoid taking the first think. So, thinking, thoughts can lead to self sabotage and that self doubt. And the best way how to help you with that are affirmations. Helping you, when you think, oh, this is stupid. No, this is working. This is working. That reminds me of something I did in the past where I was trying to change a couple of thoughts I had in my head. And what I basically did was each time I would have these kind of specific negative thoughts that I wanted to get rid of because they weren't healthy at all for me, I would think the positive thought, the opposite to that negative thought. So a positive affirmation 4 times every time. And it took me a couple of weeks, and in the beginning it just felt silly because I didn't believe it. And I was like, what am I doing? But I stuck with it, and my mental health improved. So I did that for my mental health, and that really, really helped. You can't get rid of all of the negative thoughts, but if there's some way, if you keep thinking them, they're just like, it's just a downward spiral. And to stop that, you can have affirmations, and they can be useful. They're not always helpful. There's so many tools, but this is basically one tool that she tells you that you can use for that. Then she talks about poisonous playmates and that they can hinder you in your artist journey. So, someone who is maybe still a blocked artist, and they just wallow in self pity, and they enjoy that, and just enjoy being like, why isn't everything working out for me? And they kind of drag you down with them. If you are feeling better and you have someone around you that is kind of still in that blocked space, just be mindful of the company you keep or how much time you're spending with them. There's also a really great quote here that I wanted to read, which was, "You will discover the joy of practicing your creativity," which basically means the journey is the goal, and it's the climb, which is a great song by Miley Cyrus. But it is really finding enjoyment in the journey, not too much in the result, because of course getting to the result is great, but I think what has my experience been, and for many other people that I've talked to, you have the result, you're joyous for a couple of moments, and then it's off to the next thing. And so it's just you also spend so much more time on that journey, and finding enjoyment in that journey is basically important. And then she goes on and talks about crazy makers, which are basically people who just create storms around them, and they are really, really bad for your artist journey. And those can be people who, when you're around them, they are basically the main character in your life. and you're just a supporting character in your life. And she gives many examples of how a crazy maker can show up. For example, that they expect extra treatment, that they waste your time, that they waste your money. And she talks about, if someone like that is in your life, someone you may be close to, maybe a partner or a friend or family member, really look at that relationship more closely. And she also gives some advice of like how to maybe break that cycle and maybe distance yourself from that person. Next up, she talks about skepticism, and that basically is all about believing in the change and believe in the small, tiny changes that you see. Because you might start writing the morning pages and think, well, I'm feeling maybe a bit better or a bit clearer, but is that maybe just a coincidence? Do I really need to keep going with those morning pages and with all the other kind of exercises she introduces in this book? So it's kind of trusting that change, even if it's small. And one quote that I also really liked was, creative recovery is an exercise in open mindedness. So, just being open minded to those new ideas, just trying them out. You don't have to follow them all the way down if you don't feel comfortable with them. Just give it a go. Try something new that might be a bit out of your comfort zone, but it just might be the thing that will lead you to more happiness. But there can be resistance and it can be really hard. And that for me, they're kind of her reminding me to be open minded to a couple of things. She has already said in this book, and I'm probably going to say in this book, I think that's something that I need to keep in mind, to be like, well, just going to read it. Let's try it out, Clara. Let's try it out. Might not be that bad. Might actually be helping you. And then, as the final kind of part of that chapter, she talked about attention, and that attention can be a tool to walk through pain. And that kind of part of this chapter really sat with me, really resonated with me on a deeper level, as she talks about, that in painful moments, paying attention to the small things that are maybe beautiful, that can really help you go through that pain. And, life can be difficult, life can be painful. So, you have to go through it anyway. So, how can you go through it a bit more gracefully? And she says that attention is a way to connect and to survive. And then another part that I wanted to read to you from that bit is, pain is what it took to teach me to pay attention. In times of pain, when the future is too terrifying to contemplate and the past too painful to remember, I have learned to pay attention to right now. And she gave an example of when her mother died and she got the phone call. And after that, she, in her house, she went up like to the hill behind her house and just sat there to process. And she saw the moon rise, and just, how that moonlight was turning everything silver. And she says now, after, those years, when she thinks about her mother passing, about that moment, which of course can be extremely painful, she thinks about the moon. That is already so beautiful that I feel like I found something new for myself. I'm like, this can actually be really helpful. I think that for me has a lot of potential, which I find beautiful. And then she gave a couple of rules for the road. And I loved rule number 9, which is, remember that it is my job to do the work, not judge the work, which goes back to week 1, where she talked about, it's about progress, not perfection, and that judging your beginning steps, your early work is artist abuse, basically. Okay, now so the tasks. So doing the morning pages, I did them every day. I did them almost every morning. One time I did them at night time before bed because I just wasn't able to do them earlier. And it's like, I at least want to do them, even if it's just going, just before going to bed. And then I took myself on two artist dates. One was taking myself to the cinema. I haven't watched a movie by myself in a long time, so that was really lovely. I watched Civil War, which was really impactful and gave me a lot of ideas and inspiration for things I'm working on. And it's a great film. I recommend seeing it. It really is. I think I need like 2 hours to fully connect back to reality because it was so impactful. It shook me really to the core on some levels. And then the other artist date I took myself on, which was actually today, I took myself to get some chai, and there are no places nearby that I like the chai from. So I went into the city, and that train ride takes me like 30 minutes, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back. So just going there, getting my chai, and coming back, which felt a bit silly to me in the beginning, but then actually I was like, no, I absolutely love that. That was made sense to me, and I found it rejuvenated me in some way while listening to Taylor Swift's new album. So it was perfect. I love that. So two artist dates this week. Um, and then there were, of course, a couple of tasks she did. Oh, before I go into the tasks, how did I find the morning pages? I can feel a bit of a difference. It still feels tedious to me, and sometimes I really don't want to do it, but I'm still doing it. And on some mornings, I get a couple ideas where I'm like, okay, today I should be doing this. Okay, so today I'm doing this, and then I'm doing it, and then I did it. I was like, oh, wonderful that I did that, and that really helps me. So the morning pages do sometimes help me to get me a bit of clarity, and I think I just have to keep going. And I hope I can get more out of that, because yeah, it's small little things that currently I'm getting out of these morning pages, and it's not the big change that I expect or expected. So maybe that will come. I hope that will come, but also these small changes maybe will have bigger ripple effects. You never know. Okay, now to the tasks. So I picked task number one, affirmative reading. So go back to page 3, where she wrote down the basic rules and read those every morning and every evening. And I've done that, and it's all about creativity and letting yourself be creative and just repeating that in your mind. So I've been doing that, and that's been really helpful. Then she said, write down a list of 20 things that you love. So she said, pick 2 favorite things, and I did that. I didn't manage to write 20 things down. I think I wrote about 9 things down that I enjoyed doing that I might have not done in a while. So that was actually really lovely to do those things. There's also tasks where she talked about look back at the affirmations from week 1 and pick 3 and write them down 5 times every morning. I just picked one because the other ones didn't feel as strongly to me, and I was like, if I write down 3 affirmations every morning, it just feels like too much new stuff, and it felt overwhelming, and I felt myself kind of being like shutting down in a way. So I just picked one, and that felt good, and that was helpful. And then the last thing I picked was 10 tiny changes. Well, I wrote down 3 tiny changes. I have a couple more in my head. And she said, pick one thing that you want to change and do that this week. I have not done that because it feels more like a weekend job. And right now, when I'm recording this, it's the weekend, so that's what I'm going to do. Sometimes on a Hoover you have like a bit of fabric, and that came off, so I wanted to glue that on again, and I've been wanting to do that for a while, so I will do that. That's everything that I did this week. What I will say is I'm trying to be very relaxed about the tasks, so not to overwhelm myself and feel like I must do them, because that then feels stressful to me, and I feel that's kind of counterproductive, right? So I've been, not being like, okay, now I'm going to sit down, now I'm going to do this task. I've just like read the task, and then once in a while I've been thinking about a favorite thing or tiny changes that I want to do and write them down. And it feels like going more with the flow, which has been helpful for me personally. And yeah, that's everything I've done. And next week, week 3, we are going to talk about recovering a sense of power, which sounds really interesting, really exciting, because who doesn't like to have power? And before I forget, let's just pick a card and see what message we need for this week. Strength and guidance. And strength and guidance is about just, sticking with the path you're on currently and knowing, you will be guided. There will be things along the way that help you, but you just have to kind of keep going at this moment. Don't give up and stick with it. I think that's a really great message. And that's everything I have for you today. Thank you again for spending time with me, and see you next week.